it's a great thing that you find meanings in everything. It adds a lot to your understanding of the world, of other people. But in the end, you've got to look at it like this is life, and just survive. You do the best you can with what you have, and that's pretty much what characters in Obsidian are all like. They're all broken. There is a point to me breaking every single one of them in some way, just to show that you can. Yeah, you're broken, but you can live broken. You can survive broken in this world that will eat you alive anytime.
Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and I'm here today with Faye, whose pen name is Sienna Frost, the author of Obsidian Awakening. Faye, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. I know we had some connection issues before before we started recording today, but thank you for your patience and for coming by.
No, it's an honor, really. I've
Hmm.
watched your shows quite a bit, and I'm really excited to be on it.
Oh wow! It always surprises me when people say that because I wonder sometimes who watches it all. So thank you for saying that. It's your first interview, so I'm really excited that you accepted my invitation because I know I would be nervous accepting invites for things like this. So thank you for accepting my invitation.
Oh, you're welcome.
So I guess we can start out with talking about Obsidian Awakening. What can you tell us about the book?
Um, what can I tell you about the book? It's something that took me 7 years to date to write. I'm on book two right now, but I've I've been writing originals all my life. I've never shown anyone. This is the first book that I've decided to share with the world, um, and it's inspired by my time in Mongolia actually,
Mm,
and having spent time with nomads in Mongolia and in Jordan and Egypt.
wow.
And I feel like it's there's a really powerful message there about how they live and the spirit of nomadic people as a whole that I feel like this needs to be shared. And it changed my whole life. And I wanted to share that experience also with my children when they're old enough to read.
So how long did you spend with the nomads?
I spent 3 weeks
Mm,
in Mongolia, just going from one nomadic family to another, just living with them in their gurs as their guests. In Jordan and Egypt for a few days. That was before I decided to go to Mongolia because it impressed me so much, and I wanted more. So I decided, that I wanted a lot of time with them. I really want to try and live that life, see if I can survive it, and
mm,
and actually to understand why they choose that. And it really surprised me because they were happy
mm,
with living in that condition, and they were really proud. One of the things that impressed me the most was that they have nothing more than they can carry in the back of their cart, and they stand prouder than most people I know in the city who are really rich with everything they could ever wanted. And yeah, and that was eye opening in many ways.
So what was it that made you want to spend time with those families? What kind of convinced you to take that trip and spend that time with them?
It, like I said, the first my first experience was with Jordanian Bedouins, um, and back then it was just me wanting to see Wadi Rum
Mm,
because I was in Wadi Rum for a few days. It's a beautiful setting. I love the desert. I've always loved open spaces, um, and having stayed with them gave me a taste of it. And I learned a lot about myself and what I can endure, because it's, there's no electricity, nothing, and I had to sleep in tents for a while. It was difficult coming from the city, but I learned a lot about myself, and it was addictive to cross your line of comfort and realize that it's fine. And I mean, the more you do that, the more you feel like your problems are really small when you come home. And I feel like, I've done something that I thought I wasn't gonna survive, or that I wasn't gonna be able to be happy about it. And I was really happy in Wadi Rum, and I craved it. And I said to my husband, it's like, let's go to get, the real experience. And that's in Mongolia. And we did a horseback tour of Mongolia from all around the country, where we just rode from one nomadic family to another. So it was like as close to a nomadic life as possible. Yeah, and I loved it, and that was like probably one of the most relaxed time of my life. And I was happiest having no electricity and no plumbing, not even the toilet. It was a hole in the ground. It was difficult. I had no shower for 8 days at a time. Everywhere you want to go, you have to ride really far. And yet I was happy. By the end of 3 weeks, I didn't have to come back to the city. I didn't need phones. I didn't need internet. There was no Wi-Fi signal over there. It's a revelation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
it improved my life over here. When I'm back in the city, I'm a different person.
And when you spend time with these families, how welcoming were they to you? Just this outsider who came and wanted to spend time with them. Is that something that happens often?
They have, the hospitality was amazing. Really, both in Jordan, Egypt, and Mongolia. Actually, they don't go out of their ways to please you. That's what I love about them, because you can feel that they're really, really proud. But they're okay. They're great with us. They really introduce us to their way of life, and I felt welcomed in a really genuine way. It's different from when you go to a hotel and then everyone's serving you, and it's like that's their job. But when you stay with nomadic families, and when they take you in, it's really genuine hospitality.
It's funny that we see technology and all these modern lifestyles as making life easier, and when all that's stripped away, we kind of realize that what it kind of puts things in perspective.
Yeah, I mean, and you really don't need them. You really don't need technology, and I think you find a lot more. You can find a lot more happiness in life, and even easier too, when you don't have these things. It's like I'm not that big of a fan of technology these days. And when I travel, I try to go to these places where there are no signals or no electricity. Just go back to the past. You learn a lot. Probably that's why I write historical fantasy.
So that was really what convinced you to write this story and publish it? Was that what pushed you over the edge to get the novel out there?
Yes, yes. I feel like it's an experience that should be shared. That not many people have a chance to realize what they're about.
Wow, that sounds like quite an experience for 3 weeks, right?
Yeah, for 3 weeks. It was in the Gobi Desert and central Mongolia, northern Mongolia. But just you see the change in different cultures. When you move from camp to camp. I was also there during the Dam festival. That was amazing because like they get together every year to have this competition, countrywide competition where they do horseback riding, archery, wrestling. It's warrior stuff. That's and as you move, and it's like a week long, maybe 2 weeks, I think, event where you move. When you move from camp to camp, there are different groups of people competing, and then the winners go to Ulaanbaatar to compete in this final huge Olympic like event. It was really cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's something we don't actually see anymore these days. And everyone rode their horses to watch. There's a parking lot for horses, not cars. It was really interesting, and that's inspired Diao in my book, actually. Yeah.
Wow. So was there a reason you hadn't shared the previous things you've written? Was there a reason you haven't wanted to share those?
I've always written for myself. I've never wanted to be a writer. I just have stories. I wrote to entertain only me for a good 20 years. Just didn't have a reason to share. It felt too private for me, even because also there was a time like I left home. I left Thailand when I was about 15, and I was in New Zealand, in the UK, and I moved to the US. So, and I was alone. I just went alone, not without I was without my family, and I was in a completely new country. I was young. I had nobody for a long time, and writing just kept me company, and that was the only reason I write. And back then, there was no place to share. I'm old. We didn't have internet or websites to share. I didn't know where to. I wouldn't know where to share them. Yeah, and English being my second language, I didn't feel like I was able to write that well to do anything about it. Yes. But then I started writing, when there's internet, I started writing fan fiction for fun. I gained a pretty large audience from that, and that was a 7-year journey for a trilogy, and that's a fanfic as well. And I think that was the most successful writing journey I've had to date, which actually pushed me to start sharing my original. That's also why, because a lot of readers were going like, you have to write original and try and publish and stuff, and I well, let's try.
So after writing for so long for yourself, and that keeping you company through all these the travels you've done, and the times when you were by yourself, and those moments that you kind of kept you going, how was it? What was that feeling like to finally share what you've written and publish it? Was that strange?
I have a love-hate relationship with that, really, because when I put myself out there, there's a level like of expectation that wasn't there when I just wrote for me, and obviously every time someone has a problem with what I write, which when you share, it's gonna be bad reviews and stuff. It sort of taints that for me, because it was supposed to be my escape from life, my little corner, if you know what I mean. And I've sort of allowed outsiders in to ruin that private place. That's the part that I really hated about sharing. And to this day, sometimes I feel like I want to quit. I want to
Mm.
stop sharing because I want that back. Yeah, but then on the other side of it, I've met so many people, and I've somehow helped a lot of people, especially during my fanfic time. I had a lot of fans who brought to me that they're dealing with cancer, the death of their son, their husband, and that my writing was the only thing that was, keep them looking forward to the next day.
Wow.
I talk to my readers a lot, and they've become my friends. Um, and then I realized that there are a lot of people out there who are reading for that to get by,
Mm.
and that's one thing I can't let go that easily because I feel like it matters to a lot of people, and it's worth it.
When someone tells you that they read your book to keep them going, what do you say to that? It must be such a powerful moment to have someone tell you that that's what keeps them going.
Yeah, it's difficult to say anything, but thank you. I'm glad it means as much to me to hear that, and it does keep me going as well. I
Mm.
let them all know that it's them. It's the fact that they reach out to me and tell me these things, that I'm still posting new chapters, that I'm still coming out with books, that I'm still sharing my work at all. Otherwise, nobody. I actually thank them in my book because
Mm.
really it's because of them who has reached out and told me that they needed my stories, that other people get to see it at all. Yeah, I don't need to be a writer. That has never been my dream. I have stories, and
Yeah.
I'm only sharing it because someone on the other side of the planet needs it, loves it, it makes them happy.
It is amazing that you can, just like we are right now, we're across the planet from each other, and we're here talking about books and writing books and
Yeah, it's amazing how it
amazing.
connects everybody together. And yeah, that's this connection that brings so many people I wouldn't have met otherwise into my life. It's pretty much why I'm sharing at all.
Yeah. And so you mentioned you were working on book two. Is do you plan a series, or how many books do you plan to
I
write?
don't plan. I'm a pantser. I don't plan, but I've never been able to write anything short. Um, it would have to be at least 3 books for the story to finish at least. And I know for sure I would probably continue with side stories of prequels. I promised everybody a prequel of my Antag. Yeah, when he was young, before he became this conqueror. That's the story I really want to write. So there will be a lot of books based on this world because I'm not done. I like being in it. I don't
Hmm.
want to move on, but I don't plan at all.
Hmm. Wow. So you go along for the ride, and that's so pantser as you just go along and don't plan ahead and just kind of wherever it takes you.
Yeah, I don't even know the next chapter. I can
Hmm.
tell you this. I don't know how it will end. It's become a rule even for me that I don't allow myself to go that far forward because I get bored. And then a lot of pantsers will tell you this because if they know what happens next, they get bored and they don't write. The book doesn't get written, and
Hmm.
that's the same thing for me. It it's like this. If I know something's gonna happen, everything that leads from here to that feels like a chore. It
Hmm.
feels like a journey I've taken, and I'm not excited about it anymore. And then I don't write as well. I've actually done that. I've tried planning, and then I don't write as well because the place where one thing leads up to another feels like work, and it
Hmm.
shows.
Wow. See,
When
I'm the kind of person here.
it shows.
I have to plan, so to hear that is I just can't imagine. But it, if it works for you, then that's great. Yeah, it's just so weird to kind of just go with the flow like that. For people like me, I'm weird, but
I know, just yeah, it's very different. I tried both. It's just some it works for some people, it doesn't for others, you know.
the creative process is so interesting because everyone has their own way of kind of creating and telling their stories, that it's really fascinating to hear everyone's different perspective on it.
Yeah, and it allows you to try several things as well. I mean, I try everything. It's interesting. That's also one reason why I travel. I want to see um, what works for somebody that I've never tried before. What makes someone else happy,
Mm.
um, and try and just to try that. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think it's really important to try.
Yeah, definitely. And how would you describe your writing style?
It's an opera. I love opera, and I get complaints about run-on sentence and being too dramatic at times. But I can't help it. I love operas. So yeah, it's gotta be somewhere along that line.
Hmm.
And it would sometimes I would go on too long, too loud, too dramatic. But subtlety is not it's not me.
So I noticed recently you mentioned that you were making changes to the book, that you made changes to the book before you decided to query and put it. So what changes did you make before you started to query for the book?
it's it's when you start to query, I do my researches about
Mm.
what's needed and everything, and then you start hearing people tell you that, oh, a book has to open this way to catch their eyes because they're only reading the first 5 pages,
Mm.
and also that there's a word limit to it, which I exceeded anyways. But I still thought like, well, maybe I'll bring it down as much as I can, um, and I stripped quite a few chapters off it, maybe 20, 30K um,
Mm.
from the original, which has been posted on Wattpad for a year and a half or 2 years with really good feedbacks.
Mm.
And I cut back because of what people said. People who have never read my book, actually, which was kind of stupid. Um, and then when I started getting rejections, I looked back and did what everyone else said they do. Oh, they come back, they look at their query, they change their opening, and then they find success. So I tried that. I played around with that because it feels like, but it doesn't deep down. It doesn't feel right for me because I
Mm.
have a vision of how my book opens, which disagrees with everyone says out there about what would get to you an agent.
Mm.
And I've changed it to a certain point where I'm happy with it now. But like I said on Twitter, if I can come up, with a director's cut, I like to call it director's cut. It's like an uncut version, really, and a version I would die with. It would be different. The
Mm.
Especially the opening would be different.
So will we ever see a director's cut, or are
Oh,
there other plans to
definitely.
release it?
I definitely. I promise a lot of readers that. I promise myself that because that's the edition I would die with. I'm not a writer who's looking to a name for myself and write 20 books in my lifetime. This is the one series that I feel like I'm going to write till I die. It might end up being the Wheel of Time long, for all I know. It could happen, but right now I don't see myself writing anything else. So yeah, this is something really important to me, that in the end I want a version that I would be happy with personally.
And you mentioned reader feedback, and I noticed that on Twitter you had mentioned that some readers told you how the quote here. So when readers ask you to stop putting your characters through quote shit after shit unquote, that or they'll stop reading. What is your reaction to that when readers tell you stop putting these characters I love through the ringer?
Then stop reading. I don't actually say that to my readers, but I can tell you deep down that's what I think. It's like, then you have to stop reading, because I write for me first and foremost, and it feels dishonest for me to change my book for a group of people, which means the rest of the readers who are in it to see where I take them is not getting honesty from me. And this is something that I promised all my readers, that every chapter I produce is written purely out of passion, that there is no pretension in it. I don't write to fit anything. You are getting what I want to see as a writer 100%. And if you can take that, you take it. If you can't, you have to write your own book or find another. That is, I have a line. It's a hobby. It's not a job, and I don't need to be a writer, and I don't hold back when it's a hobby. I do that for a job. I want to do that for a hobby.
It sounds freeing in a way that you can just,
I think it shows.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it shows, because I've tried. It's not like I haven't tried. I've tried to please some readers, writing some filler chapters. It doesn't feel natural. I can feel it from the feedbacks that it's not as great, and it shows that my passion wasn't in it. And I've proven this over maybe 20 years of posting chapter by chapter online, that my journey is different, because I don't post a whole book and get a review at the end. I've been on sites where I post one chapter at a time, and I get a lot of feedbacks for every chapter. And so I know when it works and when it doesn't. And then I compare that to my writing process. Like, was I really in it when I wrote this? And 90% of the time, I think it shows the readers can feel it, especially when I push it and it's against what I really want to write. Or even on the time when I have a writer's block. I mean, I don't really have them, but when I'm trying to make, the schedule, the deadline of updates, like on Wattpad right now, the algorithm wants you to update every Friday, which isn't possible sometimes, because you can't produce. Some weeks you just can't write, and when I push that, it's always bad work. So I'm like, I'm not going to meet any deadline. I want this book to be the best it can be. No chapters are allowed to come out unless I feel 100%. So that's my line. I don't push my writing. I don't change it for anyone, and then that's why I really regretted changing things before I queried.
Yeah, that's to be able to just write what you want to write. It sounds like a good setup there, especially for a book like this. And so you would describe, would you just, what genre would you describe Obsidian Awakening in?
It's really difficult because when you say fantasy, people think dragons and elves and magic. I don't have any of those. And when you say historical, people expect real places. So then there are no real places, no real races. They're all made up. I would say historical fantasy, but I don't think it describes what I'm writing. It's really hard to put into to categorize it. I don't know. What do you think it is?
I've heard it described as grimdark, and it's funny, the everyone has a different opinion on what grimdark means, and what it means.
It's
Kind of.
new. It's a new word, and I think a lot of people confuse that with just dark,
Mm.
and it's not quite. What's grim dark to you?
For me, I when someone says grimdark, I think um, realistic. I don't say real. Real. You can't really define fantasy as being realistic, but characters that aren't one dimensional, that aren't just cardboard cutouts, and um, a, an experience that I'm going to be surprised with. Like there'll be deaths, there'll be bad things will happen. That bad things happen in history. So that's kind of what I expect, to be surprised and to be, I don't say shocked, but I expect boundaries to be pushed.
Yeah, I think for me that last bit is true. Boundaries to be pushed, because you can't help but see that there's this comfort boundary to most books these days that writers are sort of tiptoeing around. It's like, should I cross? Should I not cross it? And grimdark writers are just um, running out. But that's reality. That's what realistic means to me. That if something bad's gonna happen, no, sometimes nobody's gonna save you.
Yeah.
It's newspaper stuff, really. Force you to see reality at its worst, and sometimes you get the best of humanity in the midst of that, and that's what I love about grimdark. Um, yeah, I was so excited to have discovered that term because I've been looking for books like that without knowing what it's called.
Mm.
Yeah, and then I ran into that term. I started looking it up, and yeah, bingo! Like every book that falls on the grimdark definition has me. So I'm glad that you feel that my book is in there as well because that's what I'm trying to write. Yeah.
Yeah. It's you had a good point when you said it's the, when you looked it up, what it was exactly what you're looking for, but you didn't know what it was called.
Mm.
Um, that's kind of the way I felt too, and you can't. It's hard to go back to I guess you could say traditional fantasy after reading some grimdark, some really great grimdark stories. It's hard to go back to just the kind of predictable black and white. This character is good, this character is bad. They're gonna fight each other, and the good character is gonna win, kind of thing. It's boring. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's just not the
it's
same.
predictable because once you get there, it's anything can happen.
Mm.
Anything. The good guy turns bad. The bad guy turn good, and evil doesn't always get defeated. Good is not always gonna win.
Yeah.
And I like that in the end, you always have heroes um, or anti-heroes that
Mm.
that will have to survive that environment anyway. And in a way, I like grimdark books because it's empowering in that sense. Because in the end, we have to live in this world that is not perfect and nothing's gonna be the way we want it to be, right?
Yeah.
And you just have to accept it and make do.
Yeah. Me too. And what are some grimdark books that you've enjoyed reading?
I love A Land Fit for Heroes.
Mm.
Richard K. Morgan. I've read that series 3 times. For the prose, I mean, he writes with testosterone as ink. I used to call it like he has this axe-like prose that hacks you. But yeah, I love how daring he is in that book, because it's not every day. Have you read it?
I have not. It's on my shelf somewhere.
Uh,
Yeah, but I haven't gotten
um,
to it yet.
I think he's probably the only fantasy author who dares make the main character gay and strictly gay. And he's not your and he's this typical fantasy hero that you would see, but he is gay, and he goes a distance with
Mhm.
that. He will cross every line, and yeah, I think more so than other grimdark books I know.
Hmm.
Throughout the book, you will go, whoa. He's going to go down with this, and what's amazing is that it's one of his most popular series.
Mhm.
You read it and you expect him to be burned and crucified on a cross somewhere. It's that bad, and it's just very heroic to me that he wrote that anyway. You can see an author who doesn't care
Yeah.
whether people will receive this well or not, and I like that. Um,
Yeah, that's why I really love the self-published and indie scene right now, is because there's so many stories and authors that are just telling the stories they want to tell, and they don't, they're just kind of going for it, and you really get those boundary pushing experiences that way, I think.
oh yeah, definitely. I've just gotten into indie books like last year, probably, because I've always been reading traditional published, and but lately it just felt like everything was so predictable. Everything fits in this same box, unless it's written by an author that I've admired for a long time. The new books that come out fail to meet my expectations because it fits in the same kind of box, and it's predictable all the way through. Um, and then I find fewer and fewer reads, and I had to try indie, and that's where all the differences because they're not the trad publishing world doesn't accept those books because they break out of that box, and then they're not taking risks with those, and but that's why you find them on the indie side.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, it's a huge difference. Well, there are some books out there, but for the most part, it's all the stuff I've really enjoyed is in the indie scene or self-published
Yeah.
small press. And I did have a couple of questions for you, because I've noticed you've commented on this on Twitter, and I wanted to pick your brain on it. So you're currently in Thailand, and I noticed that you've been talking about cultural differences with Western culture, uh, looking for looking for meanings in things. And when I read that, uh, I realized that's always what I do. I always look for meaning in something. I always try and find some. There's always something underneath that I'm looking for, and just something I didn't realize that I did until I kind of reflected on your comment. And you also noticed that that the Asian cultures tend to accept things and find peace with the way things are. So I wanted to ask you, how did that ever come into play with crafting the story?
In a big way, uh, actually, because I feel fortunate to have been exposed to both types of culture.
Mm,
uh, Finding meanings in everything is something that I was really excited to try when I was in the West. Feel like, in a way, I like it because, and that's one of the things that made it really hard for me to come back here to Thailand and actually get back into this way of living because nobody would talk about these things. We just move on. We never. I don't get these meaningful conversations with people here at all. That was my first culture shock after being abroad for a good maybe 10-ish years, and I came back. It was really hard for me to connect with people because I got used to that. But after another, I don't know, 20 years of being back here and going abroad again, seeing the difference over and over again, I feel like there's a good thing on both sides. I think sometimes in the Western world, you are too focused on, finding those meanings that sometimes I see a lot of people just don't move forward at all, and you just because you're concentrating on why and not getting something done. And that's the bad side of it that I see from this perspective. Whereas, and I think that's why a lot of people could probably move on from some mental problems, but never did. And I suffered that for a while as well. I have my own insecurity issues, and being in the West made me sort of give myself excuses. Oh, I'm like this because my parents did this happened when I was young, which doesn't do anything but give myself excuses. And when I'm back here, I feel like nobody concentrates on that. Nobody cares. It's like, yeah, it's life. A lot of people have bad childhood. A lot of people feel like this. Why are you talking about it? You should just try and fix something. And I've moved past my insecurity in a way because of that mindset. And I wanted to put that in the book a lot because that's something that I've learned. In the end, it's I think you will see that I do go into I talk a lot about the meanings of everything, like why everyone is thinking like this, what happened, and this happened because of their childhood. But in the end, they move on. And in the end, I think because the setting is really dark and it's a really shitty world that they live in, which reflects my side of the world. As you know, we have a lot of third world countries. I traveled to a lot of those places, and in the end, when you're in that kind of environment, you don't have the luxury of finding meanings of things. You simply have to survive no matter what. I feel fortunate to be able to offer both views in this book. That yes, it's a great thing that you find meanings in everything. It adds a lot to your understanding of the world, of other people. But in the end, you've got to look at it like this is life, and just survive. You do the best you can with what you have, and that's pretty much what characters in Obsidian are all like. They're all broken. There is a point to me breaking every single one of them in some way, just to show that you can. Yeah, you're broken, but you can live broken. You can survive broken in this world that will eat you alive anytime. Yeah, so it is a lot, and I think it's one thing that a lot of people find that my book is different because there is this different view. One reader did say that they haven't seen death that way before, because most people would feel like that's the end. They're afraid of it, and that's the one thing I learned from the nomads. They're not afraid. They are totally unafraid of death. They would go and to the worst situations, not knowing what's gonna happen. Um, and they would just tell me, and like I asked them, like, aren't you afraid? They're like, well, you can't wait for the best conditions to live, and and especially in the worst conditions, you don't know when you're gonna die. If you're just gonna stay here to be safe, you don't get to live at all. And that's how they live. They go and then they fix every problem, um, one day at a time. They're not just staying there waiting for the safest, best condition, that the world's gonna offer. That's also in the book as well that I wanted to share.
Well, was that attitude and that worldview ever? Did it ever give you pause? And was it ever? Did you ever? Was it ever concerned to connect with with like the Western cultures or either side or the Asian cultures with the different types of characters? Was that ever something that gave you pause and kind of were careful about how to represent characters?
No, not really. That's the point of me writing fantasy and then made a completely made up race.
Hmm.
You'll see that I mix their features up a lot. I would have the Rashais with black hair, white skin, blue eyes, even because then you can't pick on me which race I'm representing. Yeah, and I do that on purpose because I really want to present humanity in a way that you cannot relate them to any race,
Yeah.
and because I hate that, I don't, I hate discrimination, racism, and I feel like a lot of that, it's still people categorizing one race as one thing, another race as another, and I wanted to mix that up and just like, look, we're all humans, um, and no matter which side you're on, we are all capable of being evil
Mhm.
or good, um, regardless of their physical appearance or even their upbringing or the society they live in. Yeah, so I mix that up on purpose, and that's why it doesn't give me pause. I mean, I have an excuse. Like, nope, this is not your race.
Yeah. Yeah. For the for with the way that the characters would deal with it with problems or with death. I think that's great that you know you have those different viewpoints in this kind of world. I think it's really really unique.
Yeah, I'm glad it feels that way. I think it's more common on my side of the world,
Mm.
and it's sad that a lot of Asian literatures don't get out there. Or sometimes some things are lost in translation, and I really hope that as someone who's lived both kinds of lives and seen both views, that I can deliver a different perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, do you have any? Um, oh, another thing I wanted to ask you about is more reader feedback that you had commented on. So, what was the most surprising? You had mentioned a dad and a son scene that certain people responded to and certain people didn't. And I wondered if you've gotten what you found interesting in the feedback from readers reading the book.
Um, it's it's a revelation in a sense that what we react to has a lot to do with our experience and who we are. Because that scene was really clear because I got so many feedbacks from from male readers, because it's the father and son, scene where the son actually feels intimidated by the father wanting to fill his shoes, and that's something that I think women don't feel.
Hmm.
I don't think we feel that as much towards our mother as well. So maybe a lot of women don't feel so deeply about that scene. And then I like many male readers reach out to me and say this made me cry. It's that big of a contrast, and it's a really good proof that I wanted to share to other and new writers as well, that when you get feedback or not on a scene where you feel passionate about, sometimes it's not you. I mean, to maybe wait a little bit for more feedback. Sometimes it's the readers, and you have to accept that, because we all feel differently about different things based on our experience. Some things will touch somebody more, some things will not feel anything at all. I've had the other interesting thing is I have like 7 main characters, and I get all sorts of comments on them. Some people say, "Oh, I don't feel anything about Hashim but he is somebody's most favorite. Like, I'm reading this because of him, because I relate to him." Um, and some people would say, "Oh, Basura is annoying." Other people would say, "I love his big mouth. I love how he complains about everything. It's just so different," and I love that, actually. But I could see that getting just one side of the comments could derail somebody really badly. Um, and I wanted to share that a lot, because I'm in a position where I have a lot of comments, different ones, that actually proves this right now. And so I wish like new authors would wait a little bit. You can't just get 5 feedbacks and then decide this is not it. Sometimes there are the wrong feedbacks from the wrong people, and in the end you just have to write what you're passionate about, and somebody will feel that too, because it comes from something you feel deeply about. I think it works that way, and I've proven that point many times with these things and the feedbacks that I get from a wide variety of readers.
Oh, it must be. What does that feel like to have someone? I mean, I guess we already talked about a little bit, but someone that tells you that a scene made them cry. What does that? What does that make? What goes through your mind when someone tells you that?
I'm happy, obviously, because but most of the time, those are the scenes that I nearly cry writing as well. Um, and again, that proves my point, that whenever I feel that strongly about writing some scenes, somebody feels it too. It comes through. So I live on that. That's how I write. If I don't feel really strongly about it, it doesn't get written until I feel it, or it doesn't get written, or that's my indication of whether I write a scene or not. Like, there is this scene where everybody expects me to write of Lasura going up that mountain to get the eagles, the eagles, which I didn't write because I wasn't interested. that was just, you can tell me to write that scene and I would say I'm not interested, and it's gonna suck. Anyway, if I write it like that, it's gonna suck. But maybe one day I will find the inspiration to write. Maybe I will feel excited when I'm climbing a mountain somewhere to get my eagles. I might write.
Yeah, the joys of being a pantser, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's working.
Yeah.
Until now, I feel like it's working. So I don't know if it's gonna work out in the end, but we'll have to see.
Yeah. As long as you're having fun and running
Yeah.
a good. So we did have a couple of questions. Let me pull these up on Twitter that people submitted. So we did have one from Armanis, which was, "What is your favorite aspect to world building?"
Um, it feels like traveling. Um, it also brings me back to the places I've traveled. Uh, I recall different cultures, different places. I put them together, make a new world. Um, yeah, it's. But I think culture is what I emphasize, like religious practice, the traditions and
Mhm.
everything. That's my favorite part to write, traditions. So I travel for culture a lot, and it's um, it's really cool to see how people's way of thinking is shaped by different traditions,
Yeah.
and it's fascinating to see um, new ways of looking at things that also works. And I want to offer that in my book from my travel experiences. Like, there's not just one way to do a thing that's right. I mean, and um, that's my favorite part of world building, offering traditions, new traditions, different traditions that actually clash. And I love putting one character from this one tradition that that he's doing fine, and then he crosses it over on to the other side of the desert where he feels like he probably hated this practice, at one point, and then once you actually live in it, you find the good things about it. um, and that's my travel experience. There were many practices that I thought I disagree with, that I could not see the good side of it at all until you actually travel, live in it, experience it, and then you see that this actually works as well. Not
Mhm.
not the way I thought it was, and that really opens your eyes, and it's fun. Um, I write different places. With completely different traditions because of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my favorite part. Yeah,
I
culture.
think traveling, because I used to do a lot of business travel, and it was only in the within the country, but even then, you see so many. It gives you so much more perspective, just seeing all these different types of ways of living and becoming more accepting of different viewpoints and culture. Because I'm in New Mexico, but if I go a few hundred miles to the east and go to Texas, it's a totally different mindset. Or if I go west to Arizona, there's a it's funny how in just a short areas people can have very different perspectives and viewpoints.
And I think it adds a lot to your life. It adds a lot to my life. I found different ways of. I I hate height. I have a fear of height. I still do. Um, but I would trek mountains. I'd climb uh, just to see, because I mean, I'm curious. It makes somebody think, why does somebody enjoy going up, hiking up the mountain just to see this one flag? I mean, what does that do? But I'm curious, and I suffered a lot, hiking, climbing mountains. But then once you experience it, I liked certain aspects of it, and that means that I have one more way to find happiness.
Hmm.
And if you keep doing that, you have so many ways. I can travel in luxury. I can do really off the beaten path. I can I tried diving, and now I'm a diver.
Hmm.
I love horseback riding. Um, yeah, and I didn't know that I would like trekking. I hated walking. I hate exercise. I trekked the Himalayas for 2 weeks,
Hmm.
suffered, and then came back and realized I trek again. If you see my travel blog, I hate it.
Yeah.
The moment of it, and then I came back. I trek again. I hate bugs. I used to think I hate bugs. I'm not. I hate the forest. I'm afraid of those things. And then I pushed myself to go to sleep in the Amazon for 8 days. Um, and now I love bugs. I look for bugs everywhere I go. It adds happiness to your life if you just open up to these things that you thought you hated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's addictive.
It is. Yeah, definitely. And the next question we had was from Noel Zamat. He's an author of The Archer's Thread. So his question was the first question was, how do you balance writing with life?
I don't. I don't have discipline. I'm not disciplined at all. There would be days when I go to work and I would write or work on my book and neglect my work. There are days where I neglect my kids to finish my new chapter. There are days when, and every day I wake up at 5 to write for a few hours because that's when I get uninterrupted time. So it's more of, it's not finding a balance. It's finding time, sneaking, um, you know, this hobby that I really enjoy doing. It messes up things sometimes, but I gotta live too. But no, I don't have. It's not balanced, and sometimes I have to pull myself back because this is cutting into my work time too much. But yeah, it's a struggle.
And his second question was, why that genre?
Um, I hate the real world. I hate technology. I hate the world. I live in the city. I live in Bangkok. All I see is buildings and cars and pollution. And when I escape, I want to escape somewhere different. In a world where nothing is the same. And I love nature. I love horses. Um, I love old clothes. I write fantasy, but I don't write modern fantasy. I write only historical setting fantasy, but for that reason. And if anything resembles the real world a little bit, I get bored. So yeah, fantasy is probably the only thing I'm going to write. That's my escape.
The next question was from Algie Doherty. His question was, how do you come up with your character names?
This is kind of evil. I take it off my follower's name and my reader's name. And I actually have a reader who is also a writer with a book with millions views and a truckload of followers who happens to read my book. Is a fan. And I told her, you know, if you see any cool names, just tell me. And she's been picking off her reader's name and sending to me. And I'm telling her, like, you better hope these people don't read my book because they're going to find themselves in here and get killed by accident or something. Yeah, but I look at my followers' name and my reader's username a lot. And I pick up that. And then I also got a really cool tip from somebody on Twitter. I wanted to credit this person, but I don't remember. Just to take normal names and then remove the first and last letter. And then you have a really cool, unconventional name. Also, movie credits. I watch movie credits and I note down like cool names. Yeah, so that's how I come up. And then if you have a really cool name, you might find yourself in my book.
Wow. I never thought of it until you mentioned it, that movie credits is a perfect place to find names because there's like 1,000 names in movie credits.
Yeah, especially when you know what you're looking for. Like my a lot of my characters' names are based off Indian names and Eastern, Middle Eastern. So when you watch those films, the ending credit gives you a lot of real names that you haven't heard before, and you can play around with that. Like I said, remove the first and last letter, and the result is pretty amazing.
It's a great idea. It's a really good idea. That's genius. Yeah, I think, as far as using like readers' names in books, and you might find yourself one day in, in a book. I think being in like the acknowledgments is cool. That's great. But to have like a name of a character that dies terribly in a book is my goal for one day. Just to
It is actually mine too. I mean, usually when a writer kills somebody, they mean a lot. I don't know. To me, I always tell my reader, if I care about some characters a lot, you can expect them to die. because not because I'm evil, it's because I like crying over characters I love, and then killing them gets me crying.
Oh man, yeah, that's a good one. So we did have more questions from Avalon Green, who's also an author. First one was: Are any of your characters based on real life people, and if they are, specifically who?
Almost all of them.
Hmm.
Almost all of them. I write people I admire into my book. Jari is my daughter, Anita. Um, she has the same temperament. Uh, Hashim is sort of my son.
Hmm.
And my husband is Muradi. He's my antac. But yeah, and yeah, I think it's the people I've met. I always say on Twitter that I interact with people to learn different personalities because I find them interesting, especially trolls, especially people who disagree with me. I love them. Like before they block me, I get as much from them as possible. Um, really, I mean, they make good villains sometimes, and they make villains. Sometimes it's surprising, especially when somebody disagrees with you and you hate the way they think. I want to find out. I want to find out why they think that way. And many times it really surprises you, and that allows me to write interesting characters. I think so. All of them are based on people I've met. I have a sword master who's based off my editor. I told him. I met him on Twitter, and he says, "Oh, he has a black belt in martial arts," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I have this character. I'm gonna interview you now, and then you're gonna be in my book." So yeah, he is there. Yeah. But you talk to me, and if you have a really strange personality, really vibrant personality, you might find yourself in my book. Really, I study people. I love studying people.
Challenge accepted. Then I'm gonna try and get killed in one of your books. The second question from Avalon Green was: Do you plan on giving a happy ending to any of your characters in your novel?
Yeah, I don't plan. I don't plan. Even if I do, it never goes as planned. So I stopped doing that. And like I said, usually when I love somebody in my book a lot, they die. So you can expect people that you feel I don't care so much to live. But I'm one of those writers who just go on until the end because I feel like the story hasn't ended until they die. So um, the main characters, I tend to write until I get to that point. And for most people, death is a tragedy. Not for me. I find that like even things with Romeo and Juliet. I mean, you can't talk to me about happy endings because I find Romeo and Juliet that's the happiest ever. That's happier as ever after. That's happy ever after for me because they die in love. Um, I mean, what's better than that? Most people die alone and old in their bed. And that's love that's not going to be broken, if you know what I mean. I see it that way. So when people say happy ending, I'm saying, what's a happy ending? Because when a couple gets together, like Murari and Zahara, everybody wants them to live. And I'm like, I'm not sure about that. But while, as long as they continue living, something could mess that up. I always see the worst side of it. You can have a couple get married and then end it there and call it a happy ending. I don't call that a happy ending. I call it a breakup coming. there's there's gonna be problems and things that happens until they die. So actually, my happy ending is death. It's a good death, and that's not a happy ending for most people.
It's a very grimdark viewpoint.
So, like I said, I don't see death as something to be dreaded. Really, I see living as suffering in a way, and I think that's a part of the culture. Because in Buddhism, you have this idea of life, you living as answering for your sins, your past sins. So if you're still born in this world, it means you still have sins that you have to pay off. So that's why life is so full of suffering, and you just have to go through with it. And when you die, and if you've done enough good things in this life, you will not be born again. It's very different from the Western idea. And in that way, I see death sometimes as the end of suffering. So I'm not really afraid of it in that sense. Meanwhile, I do enjoy living. I think you can enjoy living without fearing death, really. But so it's like everybody says a happy ending, and I write them until they die because that's happy. Me, that's like the end. Nothing can go wrong after this point. That's the end. That's a true ending for everybody. If not, that's death, and nothing can go wrong after you die, unless you believe in hell and in heaven. But I don't know that.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I never thought of it that way. But yeah, it makes sense. I like that. And that's it is very different from the Western culture. As death is life is, it's like almost the opposite is the viewpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a short story about this as well, and this is a big theme in my book, because I've never, in all of my books, because I've never seen eternal life as something to be desired. I feel that it's a curse, and I've written characters who has to suffer that eternal life and then show the bad side of it. And my view is that it's a good thing that we know life is limited, because if you are always aware that you don't have all the time in the world, you actually live better. And it's in that way that you appreciate life a lot more, because it can end at any time. And I don't think that running away from death or not wanting to think about it is a good way to live at all. I mean, I think it's better to face it as something that makes life precious, because it can end. And most of the characters who have an eternal life in my story suffer a lot, because they feel like nothing matters so much anymore, because it's just gonna go on like this. And it stops being precious. Anything that cannot be taken away from you is not, loses its significance. That's that is my view, and that's the theme in probably all of my books. You are to be aware that I've had people tell me that they're afraid to love because they don't want to lose it. They don't want the heartbreak. And one of the things that my characters say, to her son is that you have to. This is one of my favorite quotes, actually. That you have to find the courage to love things and the strength to survive losing them, or else life holds very little meaning. So it's it's something that has to be faced, in my opinion.
I like that. So it's hard to transition from from that topic, but
Yeah.
I did have a question for you because you posted a picture of a Thai noodle dish, and it was the best noodle dish, and I've been just staring at, just salivating, looking at that picture of the noodles. So I wanted to ask you about it because you in your comment it said that it has fresh cow's blood.
Yeah.
I want to find out what are those noodles called so I can try them.
It's called boat noodles in English. In Thai, it's called gui tiao rua. And what they do is they do make this soup, this really hot soup that's poured over the noodle, and then they put fresh blood in it. It's there's a pork version and there's a beef version. So when it's a beef version, it's fresh cow's blood. You actually see them pour like it's half blood, half soup. Yeah. It's one of my favorite Thai noodle dishes.
It looks really. So I would have to find out the name.
I thought it was look scary to most Westerners because of that dark, murky soup thingy. But it surprises me that a lot of people say, I'm drooling. That's a good thing.
Yeah, you got me with that. I'm gonna have to find a somewhere around here that serves it. I don't know. It might be tough, but I'll find somewhere that has it.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough even in Thailand to find a good one actually, because you can get a lot of shops, street side restaurants that do a bad job of it, and you get diarrhea.
Oh no.
The blood has to be kept well. The temperature has to be right because if the soup is too hot and you actually overcook it, the blood clots. It doesn't mix like that. It separates. It's a pretty tricky dish to make, and most shops that sell only this. Not one of those things where you will find in a restaurant that offers a lot of dishes. It's a specialty.
Oh wow. So I'll be careful.
It's boat noodles.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to find a place first, and then make sure it doesn't separate, and make sure I'm not gonna separate.
And then they actually put blood in it because my daughter lives in Albuquerque right now, and she found some boat noodles in Albuquerque, and she was there, and she was like, "This is not it."
Okay. Yeah,
the soup was clear. It was made by a Thai restaurant as well, but the soup was clear. So I suspect there's no blood in there because it's probably hard to find fresh cow's blood over in the States, right? Unless you kill your own cow and save it.
I think you might be able to find some here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was her experience. She craved it and she tried. It was like, this is clear soup. There's no blood in it.
We'll have to talk after and find out what restaurant she went to, so I can go try it out.
Oh yeah, I'll ask her. Yeah.
And so I do have a couple more questions for you. So I like to. There's a couple questions I like to ask everyone. So, but this is a new one that I just added to my list. So I wanted to see what your thought on it. So, if you were in your book, would you survive?
Yes. I would be queen in no time. I know what I've answered this before. I know who to go to. I know their dirty secrets. I know what they're thinking. yeah, definitely. I think I will.
You have a leg up. Yeah, for sure.
Accident happens, and if I have, you know, time, I think I know my world well enough to survive, and I would just go to D and yeah, blackmail him with something, keep me alive, make
It's
me
a good
rich.
answer. Yeah. So the next question is, if the zombie apocalypse happened today, what would be your weapon of choice?
Wow. Off the top of my mind, it's an axe since I want to hack that into somebody in a way. I feel like that would be kind of fun. This is evil of me, but I don't know why. It's the off the top of my head. Honestly, it's an axe.
Yeah, I think the axe is a good choice. A few people have picked that, and I think it serves a few different purposes because you can cut wood with it. You can do a few, you can it's multi-purpose, so you don't only chop heads off
Honestly,
of
it's
zombies.
the most deadly. I mean, you don't need to do it many times to kill
Hopefully not.
something. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the next question I have for you was, what was your first job?
My first job. Well, I have a computer science degree,
Hmm.
so my first job was programming, making websites, and those kind of stuff. Um, yeah, I don't even remember any code anymore. 'Cause, yeah, I had that job for maybe year or two before I left and opened my business.
Hmm.
And I'm in the pet supplies industry, so I have retails and stuff. Yeah, which doesn't require my knowledge of computer science at all, or very little.
It's funny, especially coding languages. You don't use it, you forget it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you forget it. It hasn't never been my passion. It was just the one thing that I happened to do well, and I thought it was. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and it was easy for me. But my passion wasn't in it. And with programming languages, if you're not passionate about it, you stop learning new languages,
Yeah.
and then you can't work in that field. Not like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's hard to keep up. Yeah.
it's hard because it evolves all the time.
Oh yeah. I used to know HTML halfway decent, but I couldn't. I wouldn't even know where to start now. It's been too long.
It's something that you picked it up really quickly, though, if you have the background. Um, so I do. I when I need to code something, I learn new languages these days, and I can do it. But it's not something that I would go out of my way to learn unless I need it.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a whole different language. Yeah. So the next question was, do you have any favorite family food recipes?
Um, family food recipes, like my recipes or someone else's in the family.
Either one.
Uh, Probably my mother-in-law's every dish. She makes a really good green curry.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and I make really good Thai omelet. That is like my signature dish. It's really basic, but for some reason, my husband says nobody reproduces my Thai omelet.
What's in the omelet? What ingredients?
Nothing.
Oh,
It's just the way it's fried. It's deep fried omelet. You put a lot of oil into the pan. It's got to be heated really high,
hmm.
and then the omelet is just seasoned with soy sauce and. But it's the way you fry it. It's the heat. It's how soon you flip it over, how soon you take it out, um, that kind of thing. And it's one of the things that my husband talks about a lot because it's so simple. and yet everybody's Thai omelet is different, and
Hmm.
that's true. It's not your typical omelet because it's deep fried and the texture changes a lot depending on the heat, the how soon you take it out of the pan.
Hmm. So so how do you know when it's time to flip it over? Is it just a feeling or
It's a look.
visual?
It's visual. Yeah, you have to know what you're looking for, and
Hmm.
I test the oil. You drop some into the oil. Have you ever seen it?
I
The
haven't, but
Thai deep
I'm
fried
gonna
omelet? We eat
I
it
haven't.
with really good. It's probably gonna make you die sooner because of all that oil, because you can't squeeze it out at all. I mean, if you try to take the oil out or dab it with a tissue, the texture changes
Hmm.
and it's not the same. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if you look it up in the video, you'll see why. But it's easy to make. You can experiment with it. Yeah.
Hmm. I'm gonna try that out. That sounds really good. And something I always try and ask all my guests because I always try and add new questions or find more interesting questions for people who come in and chat. If the roles were reversed and you were in my position, was there a question that I should have asked?
Um, that is a hard one because I think I've never thought about that before. Um,
I
no,
stumped you with that one.
yeah, that's really. I don't want to answer this lightly, but not at the top of my head. No.
Okay. Well, if you think of anything that you think would be an interesting question, let me know and I'll add it to the list.
Yeah.
So I think we can go on for hours. It was great to finally be able to chat with you and thank you again for accepting my invitation. And I know we had some connection issues, but I'm glad we finally got it to work
I
out.
hope that works out. Yeah.
Yeah. So if someone wants to connect with you or find out more about the book, where's the best place to find you?
I think Twitter. I check Twitter most often. My username is Sienna Frost. It's Frost with FRST without the O. Yeah, and I'm there most often. My DM is open, unless you're just there to say hello, and I don't reply to those. Yeah, but I'm not against people direct messaging me if they come at me with something with substance.
Hmm. Do you get a lot of strange DMs on Twitter? I'm guessing I feel bad for some of you because I'm sure you get pestered with a bunch of weirdos that just you know
Oh yeah,
don't
I mean
understand.
I find them interesting if they are actually weird. Um, yeah, I get a lot of just I hate those hello, hi, pretty, hello, beautiful,
Mm.
how are you? It's, if you begin with those sentences, I know you have nothing to talk about. Nothing worth my time anyway. But the really weird people who have DM'd me in the past, I replied to come at me in paragraphs, um,
Hmm.
and it's right to the point. Like, I hated what you said on Twitter and stuff
Really?
like that. Yeah, I disagree with this so much. Or, yeah, I wanted to know more about what you said in public. So or I really felt this. I agreed with you. I have something to say, but I don't want to say it out there, so I'm saying it here. If you begin that way, I find really good people, really enjoyable conversations, and I reply to those. So, yeah, if you read my book, you want to connect with me, I love talking to my readers. Yeah, and you'll find that most of them have become my really good friends. I've had readers visited me in Thailand. I've had her in my house, in my mom's house.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I've received gifts from readers. I have, we send cards, um, Christmas cards and stuff, postcards when I travel all the time. I mean, I always say, like, if you're my reader, you're one of my family. If you love my characters, you're my you're in my circle, and you can reach out to me anytime, talk to me about them. Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. That's really great that you've been able to meet and spend time with your readers. That's pretty special.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, we will talk, and then we usually, when you read my book, you know who I am, and they understand me, and we have this connection, this weird connection that I don't actually have with a lot of people in real life because we don't talk about these things much. But most of my readers who read me understand the way I think. They appreciate it, and I find that we have this connection even though I've never met them before. I've been friends with a lot of them for like 15 years, and to date, we still talk, and I've never met them. But I mean, if they ever come here, I'd probably go meet them. Yeah.
Wow. It's pretty neat. Yeah. So I wanna thank you again for coming by. It's your first interview, so I feel special because it's always great. So thank you for accepting my invitation and taking time out of your day. I know you're really busy, so thanks for taking time out of your day to come and chat with me.
Now, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I mean, it's been an interesting talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot to think about.
Yeah, I'm honored. I love talking about these things. And then, like I said, I've watched your shows before. I love your questions. And the chance to get to see these authors answer some really deep questions that make me think a lot. I mean, your interview with Richard Nell actually changed my life, really.
Really?
Yeah, because at the time I was in the middle of queering. I was suffering a lot, and I just read his book. I read his, the story that he's never queried before. I got curious. I talked to him. He showed me you guys interview. I watched the whole thing, and it was a revelation. I stopped querying then.
Really?
I walked away because of it.
Wow.
Because I also talked to him, and I also watched his answers to a lot of your questions on here. And I'm really glad that I did, because I'm a lot happier now.
Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah, Richard is he's one of a kind. He is just incredible. Yeah, that was so. I'm glad to hear that. That's like a reader telling you that they cried when they read your book.
Yeah. I thought you should know, and that's why I was really honored. I feel like if it's my first interview, if it's Steve, it's the right guy.
Wow. That's the highest compliment. Thank you. That's very very kind of you to say. That means a lot to me. Thank you for that. Yeah, my day is made.
I'm glad.
That's I can yeah. Well, I'm not sure how this other than thank you. It's great to hear. So
No, I think it's important that you should know. I'm just one person. I'm not gonna make it. That big or anything. But I think it means a lot to someone who creates something like this. Like my readers, just one or two reaching out to me, it helps me, keeps me going.
yeah, definitely,
Yeah,
definitely, yeah.
Sorry, you can ask Neil because I when I was talking, I was watching your show, and yeah,
Hmm.
that was the time when I announced on Twitter that I'm walking away from queering.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Well,
So yeah, thank you
wow,
as well.
that's yeah, that's great. That's great to hear. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's times when I think about wanting to go back in time and do that one again because I feel like it was only the second one I did, so I had done at the time. So I
Oh,
hope I get another
really?
chance. Yeah, hope I get another chance to talk to him again. Well, we're talking about doing a few, but I hope I get a chance to do them. So
Yeah,
um, yeah, it'd be great to invite you to have you on and chat with chat with us. Of you, that would be fun.
that would be fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But yeah, I actually shared that video with a lot of people,
Hmm.
because I did tell them that this is you should watch this. And I have a lot of friends who are writers and were suffering the same thing. I had a writer friend who has an agent and decided to walk away.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, for a good reason. Yeah, and then I she was conflicted about it still, and I shared these videos with a lot of people.
Wow.
With that video, in particular, I was like, look at it from this perspective. Too, here's a guy who has never queried in his
Hmm.
life, and he's made it.
Wow.
And it's a totally different view of because you're among people who feel like that's the only thing to do. You write
Mhm.
something, you have to clear you. That's like the ultimate goal, and just this that talk just opened my eye. No, it's not the ultimate goal. It's not the only goal for a writer to do. You don't have to go that way. There are different ways of doing this, um, and here's someone who's done it
Hmm.
for these reasons. It
Wow.
actually helps a lot of people.
Hmm. I had no idea. I had no idea that happened. Wow. Oh, that's great. That's great to hear. Wow.
Okay.
I'm not gonna be able to fit through the door when I walk out of the room anymore. So
Well, I'm glad. Yeah, and I thought you.
wow, that's great. Wow. So thank you again for the very kind words and yeah, that it's sometimes you like you said it's good to hear feedback and kind of keeps you going. So
Yeah.
yeah, that means a lot. So
Oh,
thank
I
you
hope.
again and yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I just yeah. I hope you keep doing this because it does make a difference um, to someone.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just don't tell you about it. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, it's good to hear feedback. So but I will put all the links all the stuff we talked about down below your Twitter link and the link of course to buy the book on Amazon. Go pick it up and give it a read and check it out.
Thank you.
So thanks again. I know you're really busy. You have your hands full with your business and with work and with family and of course writing the second book. So thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks again.